Siri, I need directions to Fujisan using Google Maps.
I'm having trouble with the connection. Please try again later.
Hey Siri, I need directions to Fujisan using Google Maps. Hey Siri, I need directions to Fujisan using Google Maps.
Getting directions to Fujisan using Google Maps.
Said. His voice was trembling and his gut was rolling, but he was still angry. I know he doesn't like it, but the truth is he surprised it out of me. I was just standing here, looking in the mirror to make sure my tie was straight, when he grabbed me and threw me against the wall. I smacked my head a pretty good one. Geez, Alan, I don't even know what I said. Alan's eyes shifted back to Keaton. Is that true? Keaton dropped his own eyes. I was mad, he said, and Alan supposed it was as close as a man like him could get to a spontaneous and undirected apology. He glanced back at Norris to see if the deputy understood this. It looked as if maybe Norris did. That was good. It was a long step toward diffusing this nasty little sting.
At the next stop sign, turn right. At the stop sign, turn right onto US 60 West.
relaxed a little. Can we consider this incident closed? He asked both men. Just kind of chalk it up to experience and go on from there? All right by me, Norris said after a moment. Alan was touched. Norris was scrawny. He had a habit of leaving half-full cans of Jolt and knee-high in the cruisers he used, and its reports were horrors. But he had yards of heart. He was backing down, but not because he was afraid of Keaton. If the burly head selectman thought that was it, he was making a very bad mistake. I'm sorry I called you Buster, Norris said. He wasn't, not a bit. But it didn't hurt to say he was, he supposed. Alan looked at the heavy-set man in the loud sport coat and open-necked golfer shirt. Danforth? All right. It never happened, Keaton said. He spoke in a tone of overblown magnanimity, and Alan felt a familiar wave of dislike wash over him. A voice buried somewhere deep in his mind, the primitive crocodile voice of the subconscious, spoke up briefly but clearly. Why don't you have a heart attack, Buster? Why don't you do us all a favor and die? All right, he said. A good deal. If, Keaton said, raising one finger. Alan raised his eyebrows. If we can do something about this ticket. He held it out toward Alan, tweezed between two fingers, as if it were a rag which had been used to clean up some dubious spill. Alan sighed. Come on in the office, Danforth. We'll talk about it. He looked at Norris. You've got the duty, right? Right, Norris said. His stomach was still in a ball. His good feelings were gone, probably for the rest of the day, and it was that fat pig's fault, and Alan was going to forgive the ticket. He understood it, politics, but that didn't mean he had to like it. Do you want to hang around? Alan asked. It was as close as he could come to asking, do you need to talk this out, with Keaton standing right there and glowering at both of them. No, Norris said. Places to go and things to do. Talk to you later, Alan. He left the men's room, brushing past Keaton without a glance. And although Norris did not know it, Keaton restrained with a great, almost heroic effort, an irrational but mighty urge to plant a foot in his ass to help him on his way. Alan made a business of checking his own reflection in the mirror, giving Norris time to make a clean getaway, while Keaton stood by the door watching him impatiently. Then Alan pushed out into the bullpen area again with Keaton at his heels. A small, dapper man in a cream-colored suit was sitting in one of the two chairs outside the door to his office, ostentatiously reading a large, leather-bound book which could only have been a Bible. Alan's heart sank. He had been fairly sure nothing else too unpleasant could happen this morning. It would be noon in only 2 or 3 minutes, so the idea seemed a reasonable one. But he had been wrong. The Reverend William Rose closed his Bible, the binding of which almost matched his suit, and bounced to his feet. Chief of Pangbourne, he said. The Reverend Rose was one of those deep-thicket Baptists who begin to twist the tails of their words when they are emotionally cranked up. May I please speak to you? Give me 5 minutes, please, Reverend Rose. I have a matter to attend to. This is extremely important. I bet, Alan thought. So is this. 5 minutes. He opened the door and ushered Keaton into his office before the Reverend Willie, as Father Brigham liked to call him, could say anything else. It'll be about casino night, Keaton said after Alan had closed the office door. You mark my words. Father John Brigham is a bull-headed Irishman, but I'll take him over that fella anytime. Rose is an incredibly arrogant prick. There goes the pot, calling the kettle black, Alan thought. Have a seat, Danforth. Keaton did. Alan went around his desk, held the parking ticket up, and tore it into small fragments. These he tossed into the wastebasket. There. Okay? Okay, Keaton said, and moved to rise. No, sit down a moment longer. Keaton's bushy eyebrows drew together below his high pink forehead in the thundercloud. Please, Alan added. He dropped into his own swivel chair. His hands came together and tried to make a blackbird. Alan caught them at it and folded them firmly together on the blotter. We're having an appropriations committee meeting next week dealing with budgetary matters for town meeting in February, Alan began. Damn right, Keaton rumbled. And that's a political thing, Alan went on. I recognize it, and you recognize it. I just tore up a perfectly valid parking ticket because of a political consideration. Keaton smiled a little. You've been in town long enough to know how things work, Alan. One hand washes the other. Alan shifted in his chair. It made its little creakings and squeakings, sounds he sometimes heard in his dreams after long, hard days. The kind of day this one was turning out to be. Yes, he said. One hand washes the other, but only for so long. The eyebrows drew together again. What does that mean? It means there's a place, even in small towns, where politics have to end. You need to remember that I'm not an appointed official. The selectmen may control the purse strings, but the voters elect me. And what they elect me to do is protect them and to preserve and uphold the law. I took the oath and I try to hold to it. Are you threatening me? Because if you are... Just then the mill whistle went off. It was muted in here, but Danforth Keaton still jumped as if he had been stung by a wasp. His eyes widened momentarily, and his hands clamped down to white claws on the arms of his chair. Alan felt that puzzlement again. He's as skittish as a mare in heat. What the hell's wrong with him? For the first time, he found himself wondering if maybe Mr. Danforth Keaton, who had been Castle Rock's head selectman since long before Alan himself ever heard of the place, had been up to something that was not strictly kosher. I'm not threatening you, he said. Keaton was beginning to relax again, but warily, as if he were afraid the mill whistle might go off again, just to goose him. That's good, because it isn't just a question of purse strings, Sheriff Pangborn. The Board of Selectmen, along with the 3 county commissioners, holds right of approval over the hiring and the firing of sheriff's deputies, among many other rights of approval I'm sure you know about. That's just a rubber stamp. So it always has been, Keaton agreed. From his inside pocket, he produced a Roy-Tan cigar. He pulled it between his fingers, making the cellophane crackle. That doesn't mean it has to stay that way. Now, who is threatening who? Alan thought, but did not say. Instead, he leaned back in his chair and looked at Keaton. Keaton met his eyes for a few seconds, then dropped his gaze to the cigar and began picking at the wrapper. The next time you park in the handicap space, I'm going to ticket you myself, and that citation will stand, Alan said. And if you ever lay your hands on one of my deputies again, I'll book you on a charge of third-degree assault. That will happen no matter how many so-called rights of approval the selectmen hold, because politics only stretches so far with me. Do you understand? Keaton looked down at the cigar for a long moment, as if meditating. When he looked up at Alan again, his eyes had turned to small, hard flints. If you want to find out just how hard my ass is, Sheriff Pangborn, you go on pushing me. There was anger written on Keaton's face, yes, most assuredly, but Alan thought there was something else written there as well. He thought it was fear. Did he see that? Smell it? He didn't know, and it didn't matter. But what Keaton was afraid of, that might matter. That might matter a lot. Do you understand? He repeated. Yes, Keaton said. He stripped the cellophane from his cigar with a sudden hard gesture and dropped it on the floor. He stuck the cigar in his mouth and spoke around it. Do you understand me? The chair creaked and croaked as Alan rocked forward again. He looked at Keaton earnestly. I understand what you're saying, but I sure as hell don't understand how you're acting, Danforth. We've never been best buddies, you and I, that's for sure, Keaton said, and bit off the end of his cigar. For a moment, Alan thought that was going to end up on the floor too, and he was prepared to let it go if it did, politics. But Keaton spat it into the palm of his hand and then deposited it in the clean ashtray on the desk. It sat there like a small dog turd. But we've always had a pretty good working relationship. Now this. Is there something wrong? If there is, and I can help. Nothing is wrong, Keaton said, rising abruptly. He was angry again, more than just angry. Alan could almost see steam coming out of his ears. It's just that I'm so tired of this persecution. It was the second time he had used the word. Alan found it an odd word, an unsettling word. In fact, he found this whole conversation unsettling. Well, you know where I am, Alan said. God, yes, Keaton said and went to the door. And please, Danforth, remember about the handicap space. Fuck the handicap space, Keaton said and slammed out. Alan sat behind his desk and looked at the closed door for a long time, a troubled expression on his face. Then he went around the desk, picked up the crumpled cellophane cylinder lying on the floor, dropped it into the wastebasket, and went to the door to invite Steamboat Willie in. Mr. Keaton looked rather upset, Rose said. He seated himself carefully in the chair the head selectman had just vacated, looked with distaste at the cigar end sitting in the ashtray, and then placed his white Bible carefully in the center of his ungenerous lap. Lots of appropriations meetings in the next month or so, Alan said vaguely. I'm sure it's a strain for all the selectmen. Yes, Reverend Rose agreed. For Jesus told us, render unto Caesar those things which are Caesar's, and render unto God those things which are God's. Uh-huh, Alan said. He suddenly wished he had a cigarette, something like a Lucky or a Pall Mall that was absolutely stuffed with tar and nicotine. What can I render unto you this afternoon, Reverend Rose? He was horrified to realize he had just come extremely close to calling the man Reverend Willie. Rose took off his round, rimless spectacles, polished them, and then settled them back in place, hiding the two small red spots high up on his nose. His black hair, plastered in place with some sort of hair potion Alan could smell but not identify, gleamed in the light of the fluorescent grid set into the ceiling. It's about the abomination Father John Brigham chooses to call a casino night, the Reverend Rose announced at last. If you recall, Chief Pangborn, I came to you not long after I had first heard of this dreadful idea to demand that you refuse to sanction such an event in the name of decency.